Lies, damned lies. Every day we are lied to. Absolutely every day. Whether it's a politician telling you something so that they can benefit from it, or whether it's a family member not being entirely truthful of where they were. Maybe it's someone using the modern day equivalent of the checks in the post. Whatever it is, there's lies all around it. But at least we can trust our cameras to tell the truth. But sadly, I've got some bad news, because it's one of the biggest liars going. One of the big things that we use a camera for, of course, is actually directly to lie. You might look at the scene around me and think, well, it's a little bit on the murky side. And indeed, it is. 5 minutes ago, when I got out of the car, when I did those first couple of pieces to camera, it was quite bright. And I've seen this weather come and go all day. I mean, every half an hour or so, it changes from quite bright to really kind of murky, really misty, drizzly, wet kind of fog. And it's kind of lovely. But about the camera, well, you know, there's this element of lies that I'm just creating here, because I'm using a telephoto to zoom in on something. And that's not what I can see with my eyes. You know, one of the biggest questions that you might be asked by someone is, yeah, that's a lovely photo. Did it really look like that? And the answer has always got to be, well, probably not, no. Then there's a number of reasons for that. But essentially, we're using that to tell some white lies. How we choose to expose something, what we include, what we exclude, how we post-process it, all of these things contribute to the lies. And we might not be making really big, nasty, whopping great, fat lies. But when all's said and done, it's not necessarily telling the truth, whether we set out to or not. One of the reasons for that is the way in which our eyes work, because we don't have a great deal of dynamic range here at the moment. But you can imagine that almost instantly, if I go and look at one of these floating markers over here, I tell my eyes what to look at, my eyes focus on it, and it's like that. I mean, cameras are almost that good these days. But the thing is that it's not just our optical focus that shifts to it. It's also our mindset. It's what we are looking at. And we tend to start ignoring the other things around it, because this is a three-dimensional image and we're interested in just one thing kind of at a time. It's not often that we're really looking at a huge scene. And even when we are, where our attention is flitting from one thing to another all the time, and it's imperceptible to us, we don't notice it. But when the image is static, it becomes very, very apparent. Defects in the image can become apparent. We use focus to create points of interest. Something that's sharp in focus, we know is the thing that we probably should be looking at. Something that's softer in focus might be really important to the composition, but it might be a kind of incidental to the composition. It might just be a bit of blurry background that's providing a bit of colour and things to take the eye back to the main subject. It might be let's just think. What might it be? It might be something sinister. You may have the subject as someone who's maybe downtrodden or down on their luck, and behind there could be a kind of blurry, shadowy figure that could be theoretically the cause. You get what I'm trying to say here? These things are kind of created. We manufacture these things in our minds, and because we're kind of doing this, we're also using these tools to create perhaps an illusion rather than a lie. Perhaps a lie is maybe a strong, a strong word, perhaps an illusion. But at the end of the day, it is just art. Today I'm using the Coleman Zero tripod. Thank you very much to Coleman for sending this to me. It's carbon fibre, it's incredibly light, quite fast to deploy. I've got to say, I don't actually know whether I need it to full height or not, but yeah, we'll see. It's a really compact little tripod. It's got a kind of inverted ball head, which I rather like, but we'll get an image just over here of these fender marker buoys in the water here, and what I want to do is isolate them. I've got the long lens on. Let's take our neck strap off and we will put it in this clip. Now I don't want to be going too low with this for a very simple reason. I want to absolutely completely isolate this thing. Weather's back again. It's making for damp work on the lens. I'm not too concerned by that, but just to make sure I get it off. This is a very simple image, 2-second timer, because I don't want to move anything. The ground's a little soft and such. Nothing to do with the tripod, because the tripod is incredibly nice. It's got this half bowl head on it. Let's just remove things and pull them up a little bit, because once you pull this up here, you can drop it to either side. There's 2 cutouts for this, and then of course it also rotates around that. It's got this nice clip to tighten and loosen it off, but it doesn't have to be fully clipped. You can add tension to it by just clipping it a little way. I think there's a number of images from this one spot actually. I'll just take that off there. Now there is a quick release system on this this tripod. It's the Falcom F38 system. But I've only got one Falcom F38 base plate, and I've got multitude of cameras, multitude of lenses. So I'm not using, well, or rather I am using that base plate. I have attached it to the Freewell quick release system there. It's one of the things you do bear in mind when you come to buy this tripod, is because it has a quick release system built into it, and whilst the system itself is compatible with Arca Swiss isn't compatible with it, if you see what I mean. I can fit that base plate into an Arca Swiss mount, but I can't fit an Arca Swiss mount into this, which is a nuisance. So no disrespect to the F38 system, it seems absolutely invaluable if you've got a whole load of F38 base plates, which I don't have. I'm using the Freewell system on here, so I've mounted a Freewell clip to it. Sorry, Coleman, just the way it is. But they have thought about this, because the kit comes with a secondary column which you can put straight in here. You do lose the ball head and everything, unfortunately, or even the leveling, because it's a nice half bowl head. You do lose that functionality, but it's got a standard spigot on the top, so you can put your own ball head on it. So full marks for flexibility on that. It's an absolute joy to use in that respect. There's so many things that are going for this tripod, and I might have to get some new additional feet to work with it. But heck, it's just one of those things. There's a certain incompatibility with a lot of things these days. I mentioned other images. I think if I can pick you up and move you, I think, again, isolation, bit of lying really. I think these telegraph poles moving off down, I don't even know whether you can see them on this camera, but there's 3 telegraph poles. There's one over here hiding in the tree line, and 2 going off over the field. And I think with a little bit, probably more height than I've currently got, so I get some of the brown from the field, I think there's an image there. And that's at its maximum height. So yeah, it can go pretty tall. Is it tall enough? Well, if it isn't, I don't have another option. Well, I do. There's no tripod in the car, but let's see what we get out of this. That's nice. I mean, yeah, it's dull, but we kind of knew it was going to be dull, didn't we? Let's get our level on screen. I mean, it's luck we'll have it. That is pretty much perfectly level. Now, there is a level on the tripod head, but I haven't used that here. I didn't feel the desire to do so. Hey, I like that a lot. 2-second timer. Oh yeah. If we zoom out, maybe tilt up a touch. No, maybe we don't tilt up. I think perhaps actually we put these things more central. We're going to put the horizon kind of bottom third kind of thing. F7.1, a stop underexposed according to the camera, but great thing with what you see is what you get. Yeah, it really tells the story through the viewfinder, doesn't it? I hope you like the shots. How can photography be anything other than, at the very least, a little bit of white lie, a little bit of fabrication, when effectively it is a completely frozen moment in time? Sports photographers take photographs of goal kicks, headshots, corners, all of these kind of things. I shouldn't call them headshots, should I? They're headers, aren't they? But they are frozen moments in time. So you could turn around and say, well, did it really look like that? For a split second, yes, it did. For a split second. But of course, that's really not necessarily what we see, because we don't see frozen moments in time. It's only through our technology that this exists. And of course, the same is true when we take photos of moving objects like this, the sea here. We either freeze it, in which case it doesn't look like it does. If we freeze it with a little bit of a slow shutter, say a quarter of a second or so, we get the dynamics in it, which is probably as close as we would get to see it in real life, so to speak. You know, it's difficult really to convey a moving image into a still image, isn't it? Because still images only exist as part of effectively a human construct. You know, it's something that's been made that we look at. So it's a painting, or perhaps it's something we've built. Of course, animals build things as well, but you know, the kind of thing I'm talking about here is, we could use a particularly long shutter to really milky out this water. And again, it's a lie. Ultimately, it's a creative choice. I could choose to photograph some of these railings down here. I'm blocking the ones that I'm talking about. These steps down, they're really kind of rusty and characterful. But I would get in close to those. And if someone were to say, well, did it really look like that? I would have to say something close to. Because, of course, even the way that the camera is set up, even if you're in JPEG and you want to take straight out of camera, for instance, it's its interpretation of it. It's whatever way that camera is told to handle the highlights and the shadows, how you expose it, how close you get to it, all of these kind of things that determine what an image looks like. So the closest you're likely to get is an approximation. Now, of course, if you are photographing something for documentary evidence, scientific or all kinds of things, then obviously you need to get close. But we still always have to bear in mind that it's not 100% accurate. It can't be 100% accurate, because just think about the very simple thing of light temperature, color temperature. if you get it wrong here, let's explain it more of a photographing indoors. Yeah, photographing the same thing indoors under the light of your lampshades or your lamps of an evening is going to be different from photographing it under the light coming in through a window through the day. The look of it might be the same, but it's not identical. And we all need to kind of think about this, because as the kind of photographers that I am, or photographer that I am, and probably the kind of photographers that you are, sometimes perhaps we might get either stuck in our heads that we need to make something absolutely realistic, or perhaps we might go entirely the opposite direction and make it look unrealistic. These are all creative choices. You make these decisions yourself. They don't have to look any particular way. As photographers, we have to search for compositions. Perhaps even searching for compositions is the wrong word. We have to create them, because for a very simple reason, it is that our depth perception changes. The dynamic of a moving image is far more compelling than the statics of a static image, if you see what I mean. Yeah, just looking at this scene here, well, a lot of us could just stare at it for ages, yeah, as a moving scene, because there's a lot to look at. But once we begin to freeze that, we've got to take the eye to the things that we are interested in people looking at, in compelling people to look at particular things. And therefore, one of the things we might do is bring ourselves over more towards the seawall here and use this space to kind of, you see there's a curve there that leads us into the rest of the image. We use this wall, this curve, as a leading line. You wouldn't dream of standing there and looking at it like that, would you? I mean, yeah, what kind of looks would you get? You see what I mean? You know, no one's going to stand there and look down that line and think, oh, I'm going to stand here all day and look at that. Yeah, with this leading line here. It just wouldn't happen. Way back at the start of the video, I spoke about dynamic range, because there wasn't a great deal at that time. There's a huge amount now. I've got a huge great cloud here. I've got the sun beating down from well, it's not even a break in the cloud, because that cloud is all that way, and it's pretty much blue sky, certainly overhead. Not so much out there, you can probably see. But over here, over here is nice, because the sun's lighting up the sea spray and everything here, and I'm liking this image. And we have to be mindful of the dynamic range here, because we've got a whole heap of shadow down below, we've got a whole heap of darkness in the sky, and we've got a whole heap of real brightness picking up off the sea and the sea mist, or it's not mist, but it's spray that's really lighting up as well. But again, I'm being selective. There's a sign up here on the railings. I don't want that. I've got to be really careful here. It's a little slippy on the edge, but it's the best vantage point. Got to be careful of this gap down here. I don't want to cut the thing off. I'd rather have the gap kind of open. I might need to come back to here a little bit more just to get that. And that sun has really begun to beat down even more now, which is making the image even more difficult. You can see how bright this is through the viewfinder. It's just not as bright at all, because I'm having to stop down to stop everything just blowing out. I need the detail in the sky. I need to pick up the amazing sea spray. I need a whole heap of things in this image to make it work. So if someone turns around and says, well, did it really look like that? Kind of. Now, I've made some points about artistic choices, but there are also technical choices as well. Yeah, the whole point of the dynamic range conversation is a technical choice as much as anything else, because we can't necessarily capture everything in one go, or Perhaps we probably can, but we need to do a whole heap of processing on it later to pull back some of those highlights and maybe lift those shadows up a little bit. And it's a great example again of what we might say, well, did it look like that? Well, if I happen to look down here and concentrate just on this bit, then I can see all of the wear and the light on the sea wall. I can see, yeah, the concrete rebar being exposed there. I can see details down there. Yeah, I mean, even without my glasses, I can see these things. Okay, they're a blur, but it's all there. I can see equally some detail, although less, because this is far more silhouetted to me in the groins and the breakwaters. I can see also detail in the sea mist down there, and I can see all of these things. But this is only because I change my point of reference. I change, well, not my reference, my focus. If I look at this, I can see these things. If I look at the groin, I can see the groin. But I stop being able to necessarily see this because my focus, in terms of attention, is somewhere else. This is an important point. Let's have another look through here. What are we getting? So, through here, I've made another kind of creative choice to do a 16:9 aspect ratio on it. The reason is really quite simple, is because if we look back up here, you can probably see blue sky. I don't want the blue sky in the image. The blue sky destroys the image, so I need to cut that off. I might even have to crop it further later, maybe do a little bit of cloning and such, purely because if I crop too much, I might letterbox it more, maybe a 617 format. Something else needs to change about it because I'm still getting that sliver up the top there. So, did it look like that? Yeah, but it depends on which bits you were looking at the time, because we're trying to capture an entire scene, and our eyes don't necessarily do that because of where our attention goes. Now, of course, some of this also leads into some of the other conversations I've had with you earlier this year. One of the principal ones being the straight out of camera brigade. A lot of people mistakenly think that there's something going on with their ability with this straight out of camera thing, because basically what they're showing you is a JPEG. They mistakenly believe that the camera hasn't done something to make it look that way, and of course it has. It has programming to make it look that way. The closest you will get to straight out of camera is indeed a raw image. But then, of course, that needs to be processed because that's just a whole bunch of ones and zeros depicting every pixel value. So that has to be interpreted by a system, and Lightroom will do a different job of that over, say, DxO Photolab, or indeed the processor that DxO have, which is Pure Raw 5, an excellent bit of kit. In my mind, far, far, far better than anything Adobe's producing in terms of raw processing. And indeed, I think Photolab is far in a way improved and better than Lightroom. But I'm not going to get into that particularly. I will discuss some of this in a future video. But every image you see, every image you've ever seen has been processed, even on film, of course, because the film stock, different film stock varies from one thing to another. How you expose it, how you process the film, how you develop the film, whether you push the film or pull the film. You've then got a print to come off of it. You might say, well, slide film's the closest to reality then. Well, no, because of course the slide film has got its own chemical processes that you can do various things so with far less latitude, it has to be said. So perhaps slide was the closest that you would ever have got. Maybe the closest was perhaps wet plate, because you had to develop it there and then. Nothing you've ever seen is straight out of camera because, well, it just isn't. If you ever hear someone boasting straight out of camera, and not everybody boasts with straight out of camera. Some people just say, well, yeah, this is the image I got and I haven't played with it since. That's kind of fine. But if they're trying to suggest that they got everything right in camera, laugh at them. One of the things I got out of the comments from the last video was how people are often kind of still seeking the banger image and disappointed with what they get. And I think probably the easiest way to avoid that is to simply stop expecting. I've said this in plenty of videos: work with the process, not with the results. And there's a lot of that in this this kind of lying business, isn't there? Because for the vast majority of us, and I'd say probably everybody watching this, is what we're trying to do is capture images that are compelling. You want to look at them, or you want somebody else to look at them. They hold your interest. And in order to do that, most of the time, not always, but most of the time, we are probably trying to create something that's realistic. And I think that's the point that needs to be made, because realism in photography, certainly this kind of photography that we're engaging in this channel, is mostly about producing something realistic, something that where people have got some reflections, not reflections, some they can see something in the image that is, struggle for the words.
A few moments later.
I still haven't found the words, but I think they can see something in the image that they can relate to, that they can feel the resonance of it. It just strikes a chord with them. If you, I'm making a real hash of this. I'm sorry. Maybe I'm making a hash of this because I'm trying to explain something that is really difficult to explain. I don't know. You tell me. Third location, obviously. This is an old railway track. I think this is probably the Marriott Way. Came across these oaks. There's lovely twisted oaks here. I've put the short lens on, whatever that is. See, I'm losing my worms. What I'm really trying to do is just get in to these spaces up here. Ordinarily I'd be worried about the gaps, the white spaces and such, but I think if I expose it properly, potentially pushing the exposure high so that we deal more with a kind of high key image in it, I think that there's something to be had here, because really the images are just all about the gnarly, wizened shapes. And indeed, if I kind of turn around, there's a few of them in this area here. But it's not a patch on these just simple line of what? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 10-ish trees or so. This tree is very nice. It may seem like a relatively simple shot. Yeah, middle of the frame, and just kind of straight on. But you've got to be real careful with things like this, because that line of trees in the background, there's also cars and such over there. There's a road over there. There's gaps in those trees, and some of them are quite close together. And the big problem is there's a couple over here that are just creeping onto the edge of the frame, and you want a little bit of a gap, and that's really awkward. So I've chosen not to use a tripod for this. There's enough light. It just gives me the ability to get a bit more dynamic, because the undergrowth here doesn't make putting a tripod down that simple. The weather's all over the shop. There's obviously more rain around, because way over there's a big patch of brightness, which is obviously rain that's being caught by the sun, which is through behind this massive cloud up here now. And it's like, well, could wait here. While I am going to wait here and see whether I can get a better shot of this, thoughts on this tripod? Well, nothing's perfect. It comes with an Allen wrench, as virtually all of them do these days, and the principal purpose of that is to stick it right down the centre there, and the centre column splits. You can see here, and that allows you to take the bottom end off and get the tripod very low to the ground. I won't normally show you a raw file and the processed file kind of side by side and talk about them, but I will here for the simple reason that we're talking about kind of lies and how the camera lies. So this is the raw file. You can see it's incredibly flat, but what I was actually seeing with my own eyes was far more akin to this here. And it just goes to demonstrate how processing isn't necessarily a bad thing. We have created something here that is actually much more realistic from what we were seeing at the time. And it goes to show that processing is an absolute necessity. There's quite a lot of processing going on here, just really to pull the detail out of the sky. And it's important to note that the detail was there in the sky because I'm getting it back. It's just that the camera can't record all of that detail in one go and put it up on screen. The final image has to be tweaked with quite a lot of selective masking in order to get this right. So the Coleman Zero tripod, it's incredibly light, it's a great everyday carry. Stick it in your backpack, you'll barely know that it's there. It has its faults, that doesn't everything, but I think it's an incredibly well-priced tripod. I think it's somewhere around $200. For a carbon fibre tripod that's 1.5 kilos, I'll put the exact weight up on screen. So flexible. Remarkably nice thing. Yeah, it's a great choice. The weather really is all over the place, but I think I might have the image of the day, of the video even here. This field, beautiful, a mix of lilacs, whites, and yellow rape, late rape. Beautiful cloud here. Array of trees over there. I've got this wonderful image that is just this sea of light colours, or the light's coming out now as well. Oh, I've already got an image of this, but I think this might be getting better because it's really now beginning to pick up that sky. There's something happening in this where naturally the light is fringing and haloing over the trees. It looks like a post-processing failure, so to speak, where you get these halos, but it's actually naturally happening there. I think I need to wait for the light or the cloud to move. Let's hope the stars align. It's not star, you know what I mean. The lights are all over the place. I'm not sure I've got the patience to get too much more here. I've got a shot which I rather like. And the point is that still I'm going to have to do a reasonable amount of post-processing to it because the huge dynamic range, in order to not blow the sky out anywhere, I'm having to really kind of play with the exposure values, and that's darkening down the field a little bit more than I would like in the viewfinder. Almost certainly going to have to brighten that up. That's going to lead to a little bit of noise because noise exists in the shadows, and ultimately the image will look something like what we see here. It won't be exact because this lies, our eyes lie. Once we're looking at certain things, we concentrate on those things. We look up, we concentrate on something else. It's imperceptible, the change, but we can't see an entire scene easily and say, whoa, yeah, we can see every detail in it, but you know what I mean. I'm going to leave you with this shot and any of the others that I've taken over the last couple of days relating to this. If you are a member, well, I've already put it up. You should already be able to see it. There's a video that I recorded further down the track, and I've got the track wrong. It's actually Weaver's Way, not Marriott's Way, but it's obviously an old railway line anyway. Yeah, if you remember, there's another video from this track. Really interesting exercise, but I'm afraid you'll have to join the channel for that one. And yeah, there's a button down below. And finally, after God knows how many years, YouTube has fixed the join button for people using iOS. Who knew it could be so bloody difficult, eh? Cheers, YouTube. If you're interested in joining, click down below. If you want to buy me a coffee, there's something appearing here indicating that, and indeed there's a link down below. Like, subscribe, all of that stuff. Here's some more images. Thank you very much. Goodbye.